A McDonald's, in McDonald land, a McDonald's.
Regular-sized soft drink and a McDonaldland cookie sampler. It all comes in a Happy Meal box.
You blame fast food for America's obesity problem, but the same McDonald's menu in the 1970s maintained healthy weights. Here's what changed everything. Portion sizes were actually reasonable. Have you ever wondered why your skinny aunt could demolish Big Macs without gaining an ounce? A large McDonald's drink in 1975 was 16 ounces, the same size as today's small. Their large fries barely matched today's small order. The supersize phenomenon hadn't poisoned our brains yet, and people understood that food was fuel, not entertainment. Picture celebrating little Jimmy's Little League victory in 1976. Dad ordered a big meal for the family. 4 small burgers, 1 order of fries to share, maybe 2 sodas split between parents. Kids drank water or milk from the fountain. Total damage for the entire family feast, less than 800 calories, and everyone left satisfied. That same celebration today would involve 4 quarter-pounders with large fries each, giant sodas all around, plus dessert, because we're celebrating. We're talking 200 calories minimum, 4 times what the same family consumed in 1976. The portions didn't just grow gradually over time. They exploded into weapons of mass consumption that trained entire generations to think massive amounts of food were normal serving sizes. But here's the crazy part. Nobody complained about the smaller portions back then. Families felt completely satisfied sharing 1 order of fries between 4 people. Kids didn't throw tantrums demanding their own individual meals. Parents didn't feel like they were depriving their children by ordering reasonable amounts of food. Small portions actually filled people up. Those tiny 1970s portions actually satisfied people better than today's monster meals. Sounds impossible, right? The secret wasn't magic or superior willpower. It was real ingredients that your body could actually recognize, process, and extract genuine nutrition from, instead of just empty calories that left you craving more. When McDonald's fried those skinny potato strips in beef tallow, they created something your stomach and brain understood on a biological level. Real animal fat sends clear, unmistakable signals to your brain through hormones like cholecystokinin and leptin. We're good here. Mission accomplished. Stop eating now. Compare that to today's vegetable oil cocktail mixed with anti-foaming agents, preservatives, and artificial flavors that completely confuse your hunger and satiety signals. Your body knew exactly how to handle simple sugar from sugar cane or sugar beets. It triggered the right satisfaction hormones, made you feel content after a reasonable amount, and didn't create the addictive cycle that keeps you coming back for more. High fructose corn syrup? That stuff bypasses your natural fullness mechanisms like a burglar sneaking through an unlocked window, leaving you hungry and craving more within hours. Ingredients lists had 3 items, not 30. Open a bag of 1970s McDonald's fries and you'd find exactly 3 ingredients: potatoes, beef tallow, and salt. No methyl cellulose, no natural beef flavoring, no dextrose, no dimethyl polyisoxane. Just real food that your great-grandmother would recognize and could pronounce without a chemistry degree. Those fries tasted like actual potatoes because they were actual potatoes, cut fresh that morning in the restaurant's back room by real human beings using real knives. Workers would arrive at 5 a.m., washing and slicing whole russet potatoes while the coffee percolated and the grill heated up. The oil bubbled with rich beef fat that made everything taste satisfying and real. Compare that to today's chemistry experiment fries containing dimethyl polyisoxane, an anti-foaming agent also used in silly putty, TBHQ, a petroleum-derived preservative, and about 15 other tongue-twisting chemicals with names that sound like they belong in a laboratory, not a kitchen. Modern fries spend months frozen solid in industrial warehouses before getting shipped across the country and reheated under heat lamps for hours. Burger buns came from local bakeries using 4 simple ingredients: flour, water, yeast, and a pinch of sugar. Nothing else was needed or wanted. The bread actually tasted like bread, with that slightly yeasty, weedy flavor that made your mouth water. Food was made fresh. Every single day, step into a 1970s McDonald's kitchen at opening time and watch the morning prep cook shape hamburger patties by hand from fresh ground beef. Each patty got formed individually, seasoned simply with salt and pepper, then stored in the walk-in cooler until orders came through. No freezer trucks delivering pallets of frozen hockey pucks, no preformed patties that spent months in industrial cold storage, just fresh meat that would sizzle and pop when it hit the hot grill. Workers arrived each morning with one clear job: prepare fresh food for that day's customers. Lettuce got chopped into crisp ribbons, tomatoes sliced into perfect rounds, onions diced into small pieces that would caramelize beautifully on the grill. The restaurant felt alive with the sounds and smells of actual cooking. Knives hitting cutting boards, oil crackling in fryers, vegetables sizzling on the flat-top grill. Not the sterile beeping of microwave timers reheating yesterday's mistakes, or the depressing hiss of heat lamps keeping food warm for hours. French fries started their journey as whole potatoes sitting in mesh bags in the storeroom. Someone with actual knife skills had to wash, peel, and cut each potato into uniform strips every single morning before opening. The fries went straight from knife to oil to your mouth, with nothing but salt and beef tallow in between. No chemical treatments, no months of freezer storage, no industrial processing that stripped away every bit of natural potato flavor. Even the milkshakes came from real ice cream and real milk. The machine would whir and blend cold dairy into thick, creamy perfection that coated your straw and made you work a little bit to get that first satisfying sip. Fast food was a special occasion, not daily routine. Fast food wasn't something you grabbed Tuesday morning because you overslept, ran out of milk, or couldn't figure out what to pack for lunch. McDonald's was a destination, an event, a reward for good behavior or celebration of Little League victories, report card success, or surviving a tough week. Families planned their visits like mini adventures, discussing it over dinner the night before. Mom didn't pull through McDonald's because she was too tired, too stressed, or too busy to cook dinner. She cooked dinner every single night, rain or shine, good mood or bad mood. The kitchen was the heart of the home, the place where families gathered, conversations happened, and love got expressed through food. Not some dusty, unused room where takeout containers went to die and appliances collected dust. Kids got genuinely, authentically excited about McDonald's because it wasn't routine, expected, or taken for granted. "We're getting hamburgers tonight," carried the same emotional weight and anticipation as Christmas morning, birthday parties, or the last day of school. Quality control actually mattered to owners. Ray Kroc carried a thermometer in his pocket and would show up unannounced at random McDonald's locations across the country, testing everything with the intensity of a health inspector and the standards of a perfectionist. If the fries weren't crispy enough, if the burgers looked sloppy, if the milkshake machine wasn't clean, heads would roll. The man literally fired managers for serving subpar food because he understood something that's been completely lost in today's corporate culture. Reputation mattered more than profit margins. Colonel Sanders would show up at KFC franchises with a suitcase full of testing equipment, taste every piece of chicken, and throw out entire batches if they didn't meet his exacting standards. He'd storm into kitchens, taste the gravy, check the seasoning ratios, and make sure every piece of chicken was cooked exactly according to his original recipe. Dave Thomas built Wendy's entire reputation on fresh, never-frozen beef patties when every single competitor was cutting corners with frozen meat. These weren't just marketing gimmicks or publicity stunts. They were genuine, obsessive commitments to quality that customers could actually taste. The weird part that seems impossible by today's standards? Profit margins were completely healthy without resorting to cheap fillers, artificial additives, or cost-cutting measures that sacrificed quality. A basic cheeseburger could turn a decent profit using real beef, real cheese, and simple buns baked by local bakeries. There was no need for textured vegetable protein, mysterious natural flavors, or chemical combinations designed to make cheap ingredients taste acceptable. Corporate expansion moved at a snail's pace compared to today's aggressive growth strategies that prioritize speed over quality. Opening 50 new locations meant maintaining quality standards at each one through personal visits, hands-on training, and direct oversight. When you only had 30 locations instead of 30,000 spread across 6 continents, keeping standards high was actually manageable without armies of corporate inspectors and complex quality control systems. Restaurant owners took genuine pride in their recipes, their preparation methods, and their customer satisfaction. They weren't evil corporate overlords plotting to hook kids on sugar and create lifelong addiction. But quality control was easier when preparation methods were completely different. Everything was made by hand. Picture this scene. It's 6 a.m. at McDonald's in 1975, and the prep cook arrives to start another day of actual cooking. He unlocks the walk-in cooler, pulls out fresh ground beef, and starts forming hamburger patties by hand, rolling the meat into perfect spheres, then pressing them into uniform circles with just the right thickness and density. Each patty gets shaped individually, seasoned simply with salt and pepper, then arranged on sheet pans and stored in the cooler until orders start coming through. When you ordered a Big Mac at lunchtime, someone actually cooked it specifically for you. The meat hit the grill fresh, sizzled and popped, filling the entire kitchen with that unmistakable smell of real beef cooking over high heat. The cook knew when to flip burgers by watching them, listening to the sizzle, and using experience gained over months or years. French fries started as actual whole potatoes that arrived in burlap sacks. Restaurant workers would wash each potato under running water, peel off the skin with sharp knives, then cut them into strips using hand-operated cutting machines. The fries went straight from knife to oil to your mouth, with nothing but salt and beef tallow in between. The strangest part about this whole process? It actually required skill, experience, and pride in craftsmanship. They knew when fries were done by how they sounded bubbling in the oil, when burgers were ready by how they looked and felt, when onions were perfectly caramelized by their color and aroma. Someone with actual cooking knowledge and genuine care was crafting your meal from start to finish. Which one of these handmade touches takes you back the most? Food was made to order way more often than today, creating fresher flavors and better nutrition. But even with all this quality focus, the most dramatic change was something invisible. High fructose corn syrup didn't exist yet. High fructose corn syrup didn't exist in most 1970s fast food, which means an entire generation grew up without this industrial sweetener flooding their systems, hijacking their metabolism, and rewiring their brains to crave more sugar than any human being had consumed throughout history. Back then, sugar was just sugar, plain old cane sugar or beet sugar used sparingly because it actually cost money, and restaurant owners weren't trying to create addiction. A typical Coca-Cola contained real cane sugar, and honestly, companies didn't feel the need to dump massive amounts of sweetness into absolutely everything on the menu. The sweetness level in most foods and drinks felt like a gentle nudge rather than today's full-contact sugar assault that leaves you craving more within minutes of finishing your meal and sets up an endless cycle of consumption. McDonald's ketchup had a tangy, slightly acidic taste from real tomatoes and vinegar. Burger buns actually tasted like bread made from wheat flour, not the cake-like substance masquerading as hamburger buns today. Even sodas had a cleaner, sharper taste with distinct flavor profiles that didn't leave you immediately planning your next sugar fix. This stuff processes completely differently in your body than regular sugar does. It doesn't trigger the same fullness signals, doesn't satisfy your appetite the same way, and allows you to consume way more calories without feeling satisfied or recognizing that you should stop eating. A 1970s fast food customer would probably find today's regular Coke overwhelmingly sweet and artificial tasting. Their medium fries would taste like dessert to someone from that era. The baseline for what tasted normal, acceptable, and satisfying was completely different and arguably much healthier. But sugar wasn't the only thing that was simpler and more recognizable. Milkshakes came from actual ice cream. Walk into a McDonald's in 1975 and order a chocolate milkshake, and you'd taste something we've almost completely forgotten. Real food made with real ingredients that you could identify, pronounce, and probably make yourself at home. Those milkshakes came from actual ice cream and actual milk, not chemical powder mixed with artificial thickeners, stabilizers, and laboratory-created flavoring agents designed to approximate the taste of dairy products. The milkshake machine would whir and blend cold dairy ingredients into thick, creamy perfection that coated your straw and required some effort to drink. Chicken nuggets contained fewer than 10 ingredients when McDonald's first introduced them in 1980. The list was embarrassingly simple: real chicken breast meat, flour for coating, basic seasonings like salt and pepper, and oil for frying. Done. When everything was real, flavors complemented each other naturally, instead of competing or masking each other. But why did companies abandon real ingredients for artificial alternatives? Wall Street ruined everything in the 1980s. Something fundamental and irreversible shifted in the 1980s that changed fast food forever, and it wasn't customer demand, health concerns, or technological advancement. Restaurant owners stopped asking, "How can we make this experience special and memorable?" and started asking, "How can we make them eat more often and spend more money?" The old guard, like Ray Kroc and Colonel Sanders, built their empires on quality, reputation, and genuine pride in their products. They genuinely believed fast food should be an occasional treat, not a daily survival strategy or replacement for home cooking. But Wall Street had completely different ideas about how businesses should operate and what success should look like. When these family-owned or closely held chains went public and started answering to shareholders, everything changed overnight. My grandmother used to say, "Everything in moderation, even moderation." Corporate expansion exploded from hundreds of locations to thousands, then tens of thousands, spread across multiple continents. Fresh preparation gave way to heat lamps and microwaves so slowly that most people never noticed the difference. That shift from occasional treat to daily habit didn't just change restaurants. Drive-thrus killed family dining. The drive-thru seemed like brilliant innovation when it first appeared. Get your food without leaving your car. But it fundamentally changed how human beings relate to food, eating, and each other in ways that nobody anticipated or understood until it was too late. What started as simple convenience became a powerful symbol of our increasing isolation from community, family connection, and the social aspects of sharing meals. In 1975, most fast food was still consumed inside restaurants, where families sat together around actual tables, children played in designated areas while waiting for food, and strangers occasionally chatted about the weather, local sports teams, or their kids' activities. By the 1990s, drive-thru sales dominated fast food revenue and completely changed how families experienced meals together. Families stopped sitting together, even when they were eating the exact same food from the same restaurant, while driving to the next activity, at desks while working or doing homework, while walking between appointments. Eating became a solitary activity performed while multitasking instead of a shared experience that brought people together. The drive-through eliminated the last remaining social elements of fast food consumption. No eye contact with other customers, no shared physical space, no sense of community or connection. Just a disembodied voice taking your order through a crackling speaker system and an anonymous hand passing food through a window like some kind of bizarre vending machine transaction. This isolation had profound psychological effects that extended far beyond just eating habits. Food lost its ancient connection to human community and cultural sharing. Meals became fuel stops rather than social events, opportunities for conversation, or ways to strengthen family bonds through shared experiences. Breakfast became another profit center. Breakfast used to be sacred territory that fast food simply couldn't touch or influence. Families gathered around kitchen tables for eggs, bacon, toast, fresh orange juice, and real conversation before starting their day. Fast food was strictly lunch and dinner business, and everyone understood that boundary. Then McDonald's launched the Egg McMuffin in 1972, and everything changed almost overnight. The most important meal of the day became something you grabbed through a car window while rushing to work, fighting traffic, or trying to get kids to school on time. Commuters discovered they could save 15 to 20 minutes by eating in their cars instead of sitting at home with their families. What started as an occasional convenience for particularly busy mornings became a daily habit that fundamentally altered how families connected and started their days together. Traditional breakfast foods got processed, packaged, and transformed beyond recognition. Real eggs became folded eggs, made from liquid egg products containing preservatives, stabilizers, and artificial coloring. Fresh bread became English muffins pumped with dough conditioners and chemicals to extend shelf life. Sausage patties contained fillers, artificial flavors, and preservatives that would have shocked your grandmother. But the breakfast invasion was just one way fast food infiltrated every aspect of daily life. Marketing targeted children, like weapons. McDonald's discovered something absolutely sinister in the 1970s that would change childhood forever. Hook the kids early and aggressively, and you'll have customers for life who associate your brand with love, happiness, and family memories. The Happy Meal wasn't just a convenient kid-sized portion. Those plastic toys weren't innocent gifts or generous extras thrown in to make kids happy. They were carefully calculated, focus group-tested tools designed to trigger what marketing experts called nag factor, the relentless psychological pressure children put on parents to return again and again to complete toy collections, get the latest promotional items, or experience whatever new marketing campaign was targeting their demographic. This wasn't accidental or the natural result of popularity. It was the direct outcome of billions of dollars spent on child psychology research to create the most appealing, trustworthy, and memorable possible mascot for young minds. The psychological manipulation was sophisticated, scientific, and absolutely ruthless in its effectiveness. Bright primary colors, cartoon characters, playground equipment, and birthday party packages were all specifically designed to make children associate fast food with happiness, fun, friendship, and family love. The actual food became secondary to the manufactured emotional experience. Birthday parties moved from family homes to fast food restaurants. Speed became more important than quality. Fast food used to mean quickly prepared with skill and efficiency, not inhaled in 3 minutes while multitasking. In 1975, McDonald's average service time was about 5 to 7 minutes from order to delivery, and customers didn't mind waiting because they understood that fresh food required proper preparation time, and good things were worth waiting for. Compare that to today's drive-through timer systems that pressure employees to get orders out in 90 seconds or less, regardless of food quality, accuracy, or customer satisfaction. Food quality became secondary to speed metrics, efficiency ratings, and corporate performance standards that prioritized throughput over everything else. Heat lamps replaced fresh cooking because keeping pre-made food warm was faster than preparing individual orders. The obsession with speed created the assembly line mentality that dominates fast food today, turning skilled cooks into robots, following scripted procedures and pre-programmed instructions. Workers became human machines rather than people who understood food, cooking techniques, or customer service. "Would you like fries with that?" wasn't a helpful suggestion based on customer needs. The welcoming family dining rooms of the 1970s gave way to uncomfortable seating specifically designed to encourage quick turnover and discourage lingering. Bright fluorescent lights, hard plastic surfaces, and cramped spaces all psychologically pushed customers to eat faster and leave sooner. This speed obsession trained customers to expect instant gratification from food and every other aspect of life. But speed wasn't the only thing that changed how we related to food. Value meals rewired our brains. The genius of value meal marketing wasn't just giving customers more food for their money, it was systematically rewiring their brains to think giant portions were normal, necessary, and actually a good deal. When restaurant chains realized they could charge slightly more for dramatically larger portions, profit margins improved significantly and customers felt like they were getting incredible value, even though they were actually paying more money for food that would ultimately harm their health. Restaurant chains discovered through careful financial analysis that food costs were actually their smallest expense category. Labor, rent, equipment maintenance, and marketing dominated their budgets, while the actual ingredients represented maybe 25 to 30% of total costs. This meant doubling portion sizes only increased their expenses slightly, while allowing them to charge significantly more and improve profit margins on every single transaction. The value meal strategy created artificial scarcity and social pressure around smaller portions. Ordering just a burger without fries and a drink started feeling weird, incomplete, antisocial, or like you were missing out on obvious savings. Menu boards were strategically redesigned to make combo meals seem like the obvious, logical choice, while individual items appeared overpriced by comparison. That supersized meal might satisfy you for maybe an hour longer than a regular meal, but it contained twice the calories and set up a cycle of increased consumption that lasted for hours. Now each kid gets their own large fries and they're asking for snacks again an hour later. But portion psychology was just the beginning of the manipulation. Artificial flavors hijacked our taste buds. In the 1970s, if something tasted like strawberry, it almost certainly contained actual strawberries, strawberry juice, or at least natural compounds extracted from real strawberries. By the 1990s, that strawberry flavor more likely came from a laboratory than a farm, and somehow we all just accepted this as normal progress and improvement. The artificial flavor industry exploded alongside fast food expansion, creating a billion-dollar business out of making fake food taste like real food. Why use expensive real vanilla when vanilla flavoring cost a fraction of the price and lasted forever on warehouse shelves? Why use real cheese when cheese flavoring, food scientists became flavor architects, designing tastes that were more intense, more memorable, and more addictive than anything found in nature? That natural beef flavoring in McDonald's fries? It's completely artificial, engineered in laboratories to trigger stronger cravings and more intense satisfaction than actual beef ever could. The weird part is how quickly these artificial flavors became our new normal and redefined our expectations. Kids grew up thinking artificial strawberry flavor was what strawberries actually tasted like. Real fruit seemed bland, disappointing, and inferior compared to the sugar-boosted, artificially enhanced versions pumped into fast food and processed snacks. My granddaughter tried a real strawberry from our garden and asked why it didn't taste like strawberry. That's when I realized we'd lost something fundamental about food and natural flavors. Taste buds adapted to these super-stimulating artificial flavors, making natural foods seem boring, flavorless, and unsatisfying by comparison. An apple couldn't compete with apple-flavored candy. Fresh chicken seemed tasteless next to chicken nuggets pumped with artificial flavor enhancers and chemical taste boosters. This flavor arms race escalated constantly, with each new product requiring more intense, more stimulating, more addictive flavoring. Convenience killed cooking skills. In 1975, most mothers could prepare a week's worth of varied, nutritious meals from scratch using basic ingredients, kitchen tools, and techniques passed down through generations. They knew how to roast a whole chicken and use the leftovers for 3 different meals. They could make soup from vegetable scraps, turn flour into bread, and create satisfying dinners from whatever happened to be on sale at the grocery store. Fast food didn't just change what Americans ate, it systematically murdered the knowledge, skills, and cultural traditions of how to cook. Why learn to make hamburgers when McDonald's was faster, cheaper, and the kids preferred it anyway? Why bother with homemade fries when restaurants had perfected the process and could do it better than you ever could at home? Cooking became seen as drudgery, an outdated burden, and a waste of time rather than a valuable life skill, creative outlet, and way to care for your family. Television cooking shows made it seem impossibly complicated, time-consuming, and requiring expensive equipment that most families didn't own. The message was clear: leave cooking to professionals and focus on more important things. But here's what nobody calculated or anticipated. Cooking skills weren't just about food preparation. They were about understanding nutrition, managing household budgets, bringing families together around shared activities, and maintaining cultural traditions that connected generations. When cooking knowledge died, all of these important family and cultural functions died with it. My mother could make a complete, satisfying dinner for 6 people with $3 worth of ingredients and have leftovers for lunch the next day. My daughter spends $30 on takeout to feed 3 people and thinks that's normal, reasonable, and actually a good deal. Kitchen equipment sat unused as families relied more heavily on restaurants, takeout, and processed foods. Measuring cups gathered dust in drawers. Recipe collections became decorative rather than functional. Sodium levels became weapons of addiction. Salt used to be a simple seasoning that enhanced the natural flavors of real ingredients without overwhelming or masking them. Fast food companies systematically transformed it into a powerful drug that masked the taste of inferior ingredients while creating intense psychological cravings that kept customers coming back for more. A 1970s McDonald's hamburger contained approximately 520 milligrams of sodium, enough to enhance flavor and satisfy your taste buds without overwhelming your palate or exceeding healthy daily limits. Today's Big Mac contains over 1,000 milligrams, nearly half of your recommended daily sodium intake, concentrated in a single sandwich that most people consider a normal lunch. But sodium levels didn't just increase gradually over time. They exploded across every single menu item in ways that would shock customers from previous decades. French fries, chicken nuggets, salads, And even milkshakes got loaded with salt to trigger addiction-like responses in your brain and create intense cravings that made other foods seem bland and unsatisfying. The science behind this transformation was deliberate, calculated, and ruthlessly effective. Food companies discovered through extensive research that high sodium levels made people intensely thirsty, automatically increasing profitable beverage sales. Salt also made cheap, inferior ingredients taste acceptable and extended shelf life by acting as a natural preservative, reducing waste and increasing profit margins. My doctor told me to reduce salt intake, but now everything tastes like flavorless cardboard. They've completely rewired my taste buds to crave sodium levels that are slowly destroying my cardiovascular system. Preservatives turned food into plastic. Fresh food used to spoil naturally within days or weeks, and that was considered completely normal and expected. If bread got moldy after a week, you baked more bread or bought a fresh loaf. If meat went bad after a few days in the refrigerator, you planned better next time or adjusted your shopping schedule. Food spoilage was nature's way of ensuring freshness and preventing people from consuming anything that might harm them. Fast food chains couldn't operate profitably with natural spoilage patterns and seasonal availability. They needed ingredients that could survive weeks of transport from industrial facilities, storage in warehouses, and display under heat lamps, without showing obvious signs of decay or deterioration. Enter the chemical preservative revolution that transformed food into something closer to plastic than actual nourishment. Those McDonald's hamburger buns that never seem to mold, even after sitting on your counter for months, they're pumped full of calcium propionate, sodium propionate, and acetic acid esters. The beef patties contain sodium phosphates and potassium lactate to maintain color and prevent spoilage. Even the pickles get treated with sodium benzoate and calcium chloride to extend shelf life indefinitely. The preservative load in a single fast food meal now exceeds what our grandparents consumed in entire months of eating. Your digestive system struggles to process these industrial chemicals because they're specifically designed to prevent the natural breakdown processes that occur in all living organisms. I left a McDonald's burger on my kitchen counter for 2 months as an experiment. It looked exactly the same as the day I bought it. No mold, no decay, no change in appearance whatsoever. That's not food. That's a science experiment. Texture engineering eliminated real food bite into a 1970s McDonald's burger, and you'd experience actual texture variations that told a story. The slight resistance of real meat fibers, the soft give of fresh bread with air pockets and irregular crumb structure, the satisfying crunch of crisp lettuce leaves. Every component felt different in your mouth, because they were genuinely different foods with unique natural properties. Modern fast food systematically eliminated these natural textures in favor of engineered uniformity designed to trigger specific psychological responses. Food scientists discovered they could manipulate texture to control eating speed, consumption volume, and customer satisfaction. That unnaturally smooth, thick milkshake, it's specifically designed to feel more luxurious and indulgent than natural dairy products ever could. Chicken nuggets became the poster child for texture manipulation and food engineering. Real chicken breast has fibrous, varied texture that requires actual chewing, provides satiety signals, and slows down consumption naturally. Nuggets are mechanically separated, processed into paste, reformed with binding agents, and engineered to have identical texture throughout. Easy to chew, quick to swallow, requiring minimal effort to consume. The family dinner table died a slow death. The family dinner table used to be sacred ground where multiple generations gathered daily to share food, stories, values, and genuine human connection. It was the place where children learned conversation skills, heard family history, discussed problems, and absorbed cultural traditions. Fast food didn't just change what families ate, it murdered the entire concept of eating together and sharing daily experiences. Surveys from the 1970s showed that over 80% of American families ate dinner together at least 5 nights per week, with most gathering every single night, regardless of schedules, activities, or other commitments. By 2020, that number had plummeted to less than 30%, representing one of the most dramatic social changes in American family life. The shift wasn't gradual. It was a cultural collapse that happened within a single generation. Convenience trumped connection, and families paid a price they didn't even realize they were paying until it was too late to recover. The death of regular family dinners had devastating effects on child development that researchers are still documenting. Kids who grew up without consistent family meals showed significantly higher rates of behavioral problems, lower academic performance, increased risk of substance abuse, and difficulty forming healthy relationships. The dinner table wasn't just about consuming food, it was about emotional development, social skill building, and cultural transmission. My grandmother's dining room table seated 8 people comfortably, and every single chair was filled every night at exactly 6 o'clock. My daughter's dining table is permanently covered with mail, homework, and random stuff because they eat standing up in the kitchen or in their cars while driving to the next activity. Fast food companies actively encouraged and profited from this family fragmentation. Individual value meals made it easier for family members to eat different foods at different times according to personal preferences rather than learning compromise and consideration for others. Food scientists engineered addiction. Food scientists didn't accidentally stumble upon addictive flavor combinations through trial and error. They systematically engineered them with the precision, methodology, and ruthless focus of pharmaceutical researchers developing habit-forming drugs. The explicit goal was creating products that triggered compulsive consumption patterns, ensuring customers would return repeatedly for their chemical fix, regardless of health consequences or financial impact. The bliss point became fast food's holy grail, the exact mathematical combination of salt, fat, and sugar that triggered maximum pleasure responses in the human brain while simultaneously suppressing satiety signals. Companies spent millions of dollars funding university research and hiring neuroscientists to map precisely how different flavor ratios affected neural pathways, brain chemistry, and behavioral patterns. These engineered combinations simply don't exist anywhere in nature and never did throughout human evolutionary history. Your brain and digestive system evolved over millions of years to respond appropriately to occasional sweetness from seasonal fruits, moderate saltiness from vegetables and natural sources, and satisfying fats from nuts, seeds, and animal products. These systems never developed defenses against the artificial intensity levels systematically pumped into processed food. The addiction architecture was sophisticated, deliberate, and absolutely ruthless in its effectiveness. Foods were specifically designed to trigger immediate, intense pleasure, followed by rapid dissatisfaction and craving, ensuring customers would need more within hours of consumption. The satisfaction was temporary and chemically manufactured, while the craving became permanent and increasingly difficult to ignore. My teenage son can eat an entire large meal from McDonald's and be genuinely hungry again within 2 hours, asking for snacks or planning his next meal. Meanwhile, my mother's Sunday pot roast would keep our whole family satisfied and content until the next day. Instant gratification destroyed patience. Fast food systematically trained entire generations to expect instant gratification from every aspect of life, making the natural human capacity for patience, planning, and delayed gratification seem unnecessary and outdated. The idea of waiting for anything, working toward long-term goals, or appreciating processes that took time gradually became intolerable to people conditioned by drive-through immediacy and and on-demand consumption. In 1975, cooking a proper family meal required advanced planning, grocery shopping with a list, and actual preparation time that involved multiple steps, techniques, and patience. This process naturally taught children and adults important life skills: patience, delayed gratification, planning ahead, and the deep satisfaction that comes from effort, anticipation, and earning something worthwhile. The meal actually tasted better because you invested time and energy into creating it. Fast food systematically eliminated all of this character-building delay and effort. Want food? Drive through and get it immediately with no planning, no effort, no waiting, and no appreciation for the process. Food became as instant and thoughtless as flipping a light switch or pressing a button. Pure consumption with no connection to effort, seasons, or natural cycles. This instant gratification training extended far beyond food into every area of life, fundamentally changing how people approached challenges, relationships, and personal development. Children raised on fast food expected everything to be immediate: entertainment, communication, problem-solving, academic success, even romantic relationships. The patience required for genuine achievement, skill development, or meaningful relationships became almost impossible for many people to develop or maintain. My kids literally can't understand why homemade cookies take 2 hours to make when store-bought cookies are available instantly at any time. They've been systematically trained to think that waiting for anything is unnecessary punishment rather than a natural part of life. The psychological impact was devastating to individual development and social functioning. Natural reward cycles require build-up, effort, anticipation, and investment to create genuine satisfaction and lasting happiness. When everything becomes instant and effortless, nothing provides deep fulfillment or lasting contentment. People became addicted to constant stimulation, but never achieved real satisfaction. Emotional manipulation replaced real comfort. Fast food companies didn't just sell food, they systematically sold manufactured emotional experiences, specifically designed to hook customers at their most vulnerable psychological moments and create dependencies that lasted decades. Every aspect of the fast food experience was carefully engineered to trigger specific emotional responses that would ensure lifelong customer loyalty, regardless of health consequences. Happy Meals weren't about providing appropriate nutrition for children. They were about programming developing minds to associate fast food with love, celebration, family bonding, and emotional comfort during difficult times. The toys, games, colorful packaging, and marketing messages all sent one clear signal: this food makes you happy when life gets tough, and you deserve this comfort whenever you're struggling. Birthday parties at McDonald's systematically taught families that significant life events should be celebrated with processed food rather than home-cooked meals shared with extended family members. The most important moments in children's lives, birthdays, achievements, special occasions, became branded corporate experiences instead of personal family traditions rooted in cultural heritage and genuine relationships. The emotional manipulation extended to adults through sophisticated nostalgia, marketing designed to trigger childhood memories and emotional associations. "I'm Lovin' It" wasn't about food quality, nutritional value, or customer satisfaction. It was about creating powerful emotional attachment to a corporate brand that would override rational decision-making about health and finances. When my marriage fell apart, I found myself eating McDonald's alone in parking lots after work because it reminded me of happier times with my kids when they were young. They had programmed me to seek emotional comfort in their food during personal crisis. Childhood programming created lifelong customers. Children's brains are incredibly plastic, vulnerable to programming, and incapable of recognizing or resisting sophisticated marketing manipulation, which made them the perfect targets for fast food companies seeking seeking to create lifelong customers who would never question their consumption habits. The psychological manipulation of developing minds was systematic, scientifically researched, and devastatingly effective in ways that wouldn't be fully understood for decades. Ronald McDonald became more recognizable to American children than presidents, historical figures, or even popular cartoon characters from other companies. This wasn't accidental popularity or natural brand recognition. It was the direct result of billions of dollars spent on child psychology research, specifically designed to create the most appealing, trustworthy, and memorable possible mascot for developing minds. Playground equipment strategically placed inside restaurants turned fast food locations into entertainment destinations, where children would beg to go, regardless of hunger or mealtime. Parents found themselves visiting McDonald's not because anyone needed food, but because kids demanded access to play areas, birthday party rooms, and promotional experiences that had nothing to do with nutrition. The Happy Meal toy strategy represented psychological warfare disguised as generous customer service, creating emotional connections that would influence decision-making throughout their entire adult lives. Adults who tried to avoid fast food often found themselves emotionally drawn back to these childhood comfort associations during stressful periods, relationship problems, or major life transitions. Generational transfer destroyed food culture. The ultimate corporate strategy wasn't just hooking individual customers for their lifetime spending, it was ensuring that fast food dependency, processed food preferences, and industrial eating habits transferred seamlessly from parents to children across multiple generations until artificial food systems became indistinguishable from traditional culture. Companies invested decades and billions of dollars in creating cultural changes that would make processed foods seem normal, traditional, and even more loving than home cooking. Parents who grew up eating fast food during the 1980s and 1990s raised children who literally knew no alternative to industrial food systems. Essential kitchen skills weren't passed down because parents had never learned them from their own fast food-dependent families. Traditional family food traditions died completely because they were systematically replaced with branded corporate experiences that felt more familiar, convenient, and socially acceptable than grandmother's old-fashioned recipes. The generational transfer was accelerated by economic pressures and marketing messages that made fast food seem like smart financial decisions for struggling families. Working parents discovered that dollar menu items cost less than buying ingredients for home cooking, especially when you factored in time costs, the risk of food spoilage, and the convenience of not having to plan, shop, or clean up after meals. But this calculation completely ignored the hidden costs that accumulated over generations and compounded with each family member. Families spent exponentially more money on health care, treating diet-related diseases, lost productivity due to chronic illness, and decreased quality of life, while simultaneously losing the cultural knowledge and practical skills that could have prevented these problems entirely. My grandmother could feed 8 people a complete, satisfying dinner with $5 worth of basic ingredients and keep everyone healthy, energetic, and happy. I spend $50 on fast food to feed 4 people and wonder why everyone in my family is always tired, sick, or dealing with health problems. Nutritional ignorance became corporate strategy. Fast food companies spent decades and billions of dollars keeping customers systematically ignorant about nutrition facts, ingredient lists, and health consequences of their consumption choices. Before mandatory calorie disclosure laws, most people had absolutely no idea they were consuming 1,500 calories, 2,000 milligrams of sodium, and 75 grams of fat in a single value meal that marketing campaigns portrayed as normal, reasonable portions. The strategy was brilliant in its deceptive simplicity. Make nutritionally devastating food seem healthy, wholesome, and beneficial through carefully crafted marketing messages while providing no actual nutritional information that might influence customer behavior. Salads loaded with more calories, fat, and sodium than double cheeseburgers were aggressively promoted as healthy choices for health-conscious customers. Menu boards displayed appealing photographs, tempting descriptions, and promotional prices, but never mentioned that a single large milkshake contained more sugar than most people should consume in 3 entire days. The disconnect between marketing messages and nutritional reality was staggering, intentional, and remarkably effective at deceiving even educated consumers. I genuinely believed I was making healthy, responsible choices by ordering Caesar salads instead of burgers for months, until I finally looked up the nutrition information and discovered the salad had more calories, fat, and sodium than a Big Mac. They had literally tricked me into thinking processed food was nutritious. Restaurant chains fought aggressively against nutritional transparency requirements, spending millions on lobbying efforts and legal challenges. They claimed calorie counts would confuse customers, hurt business, and create unnecessary government interference in private enterprise. The real fear was that informed customers would dramatically reduce their processed food consumption once they understood what they were actually putting into their bodies. When nutritional information finally became mandatory, the numbers were shocking even to industry insiders. Menu items that seemed reasonable contained sodium levels approaching medically dangerous limits. Foods specifically marketed to children exceeded recommended daily sugar intake by 200–400% in single servings. Health destruction became normalized. The health consequences of this fast food transformation were catastrophic and immediate. Within 2 decades of fast food becoming mainstream, America experienced unprecedented rates of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease that had been rare throughout human history. Childhood diabetes rates increased by over 500% between 1980 and 2010. Adult obesity rates more than doubled. Heart disease became the leading cause of death, despite medical advances that should have reduced cardiovascular problems. The health destruction extended beyond physical symptoms into psychological and cognitive impact. Children raised on processed foods showed higher rates of attention problems, behavioral disorders, and learning difficulties that correlated directly with their dietary patterns. The artificial ingredients and chemical additives created a toxic load that human bodies had never evolved to process. Our digestive systems developed over millions of years to handle natural foods, not laboratory creations that functioned like slow-acting poisons. My doctor told me I have the blood work of someone twice my age, and I'm only 35. When I told him what I eat, he said I'm basically conducting a chemistry experiment on my own body. The most tragic victims were children, whose developing brains and organs were damaged during vulnerable growth periods. Kids who should have been building healthy foundations instead became pharmaceutical customers managing preventable diseases before adulthood. The corporate takeover was complete. By the early 2000s, fast food companies had achieved something unprecedented. They had successfully replaced thousands of years of food culture with corporate manufactured consumption habits that prioritized profit over human health. The takeover was so complete that most people couldn't imagine alternatives to industrial food systems. Cooking from scratch seemed exotic and time-consuming. Regular family meals felt old-fashioned. The idea of eating seasonally became as foreign as churning butter. Corporate food scientists had successfully created psychological and physical addiction to products that resembled food, but functioned like habit-forming drugs. The addiction was simultaneously psychological, physical, and cultural, affecting individual health and entire social structures. Fast food companies controlled virtually every aspect of the modern food experience: what people craved, when they felt hungry, how much they needed to feel satisfied, and even how they thought about nutrition and family relationship. I know this food is terrible for me and my kids, but I can't help myself anymore. When I'm stressed or celebrating, Fast food feels normal and comforting. They've rewired my brain and my family's entire relationship with food. The way back to real food. The path back from this nutritional wasteland isn't complicated, but it requires courage to reject everything the processed food industry has taught us about eating and family life. The solution isn't found in new diet trends or products. It's in rediscovering the wisdom our grandparents took for granted. Real food spoils naturally, and that's a feature that ensures freshness. If your bread lasts for weeks without molding, you're eating a chemistry experiment, not bread. If your meat doesn't require careful storage, it's been processed beyond recognition. Cooking takes time and planning, and that's essential for creating satisfaction and bringing families together. The preparation that modern life tries to eliminate is actually crucial for healthy eating that can't be replaced by instant gratification. Eating together matters more than eating perfectly. Families who share imperfect home-cooked meals develop stronger bonds and better health than individuals consuming processed foods alone. I started cooking Sunday dinners like my grandmother did, and my kids put down their phones and started talking. The food brought us together in ways I'd forgotten were possible. Reading ingredient lists shouldn't require a chemistry degree. If you can't pronounce it or wouldn't keep it in your pantry, you probably shouldn't eat it regularly. Most importantly, rejecting processed food isn't about perfection. It's about direction. Every home-cooked meal moves your family closer to the health that sustained human communities for thousands of years. Way back is actually the way forward to authentic nourishment. These weren't just different recipes. They were different values. When food was made with care, eaten with intention, and shared with love. Maybe we can't go back, but we can remember what real nourishment felt like. Which memory hit you hardest? Share it so these stories never disappear.